This episode of Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis is brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in beautiful Elkhart, Indiana. I'm Tim O'Malley. Today with John Brice of FootballScoop, Tim Prister of Irish Illustrated. Priester, you had defense, JB, you had offense, and since I guess everybody wants to hear about the offense a little more at this time of year, we're going to start to my right. John, what did you see out there in our 20 minutes besides not a whole lot of competitive throws?
Yeah, not a lot of competitive throws. I will say there's still very clearly competition at that right guard position. And we, Tim Priester and I both talked about this. We saw Gerby Lambert repeatedly working some combo block drills with Ashton Craig, which is pretty obvious there, but then we saw Sullivan Absher working combo blocks with Emil Wagner, and we know he's the right tackle. I also would note that Rob Delaney, the assistant OL coach, was quick to praise Gerby Lambert over a leverage step, and then Joe Rudolph, who does not throw around fake praise, was very quick to praise Sullivan Absher for one of his reps, saying, "Great job, Sully." And so what I think I take from that is that Gerby Lambert is really, really pushing and trending in the right direction, but I also think that Notre Dame believes it has 6 good linemen right now until Charles Jagasaw returns and makes that 7 good linemen. In terms of quarterbacks, I think we're all hearing in consensus very similar information. Sunday, as we've noted repeatedly, is Notre Dame's Jersey scrimmage. That is the pinnacle of preseason camp, and Kenny Minchie is in a very enviable position at the quarterback spot heading into Sunday's work, which again is the ultimate close to fall camp. It's the ultimate prove-it setting for all the players. They scrimmage Wednesday at Penn, but that was not in full gear. They didn't have the padded pants on. Tomorrow, Sunday, will be full pads.
Tim Priester, defensive side of the ball. They do you a little solid every once in a while by hopping into first, second, and third unit, but it was pretty brief.
It is pretty brief, but we did see Traore and Young at defensive end, which, when you see them on the field together, it's like, okay, now that's a pretty menacing duo out there. And I think that might actually be the first time I've seen them together. Young at right end, Traore at left end, and still on the interior, Onye and Heinisch. And I really think, Jared Dawson did some good things today, and he was praised by the defensive line coaches. But I really think a lot of it has to do with Heinisch has been in the program for 3 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. He's smart. Dawson's going to be right there with him. Onye has done it. I think you can say that he's had a really, really good camp and put himself in position to be the starter. It strikes me that I never see KVA as a starting linebacker. And then if you go to the quote-unquote story on today's an Irish Illustrated today, you will see 2 paragraphs from Max Bulla that just overflowing praise of KVA and the various aspects of the game. So I don't think he needs a whole lot of reps with the ones. He's going to be difficult to take off the field along with Drake Bowen. And then on the back end, Jalen Stroman getting first-team reps today. We talked to Mike Mickens afterward. Maturity, leadership, confidence. Those were the first 3 words that he threw out about Jalen Stroman. Certainly Luke Telich will be in the mix. They'll share that spot. But I think at this point, we can probably say that Jalen Stroman's going to get the answering call.
I think he'll win the job as well, and one way of looking at it is we were here on a Sunday, and this is a Friday. Those are not odd, even days, if you want to count them out. So if they're alternating, they did not alternate in that. They were not alternating properly. So I think Stroman probably has inched ahead a little bit, and Mike Mickens actually mentioned today that Tate Johnson can also call a defense. He said he's confident in all 4 of them to call a defense. I asked specifically. That could be a little bit of coach speak, but he offered Johnson. I kind of just mentioned Stroman and Talich in terms of who could back up Schuler should something go wrong. I do want to make note, Josh Burnham, while participating today, was not in that drill where Young was the starter because he had a heavily wrapped...
Yeah, that's noted in the practice
report. Yeah, he had
report,
a heavily wrapped right thigh.
He's been, I think I wrote a practice report on August 6th. Today's the 15th. So it's been something that's been troubling him, pretty much throughout camp.
We spoke with Marty Biagi. He's fountain of special teams information today. And why don't we start with, I think punt and kick return was kind of fun today because there was one surprise involved.
Yeah, exactly.
A really fast surprise, John.
I was getting ready to say, hey, this is not offense, but these are offensive players. And Marty Biagi pointing out that when they faced Penn State in the Orange Bowl, who were deep on kickoffs for the Nittany Lions, none other than Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Well, guess what? Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are going to be the deep guys on kickoff return for Notre Dame. I think that's very telling. I think that's very enticing. And we made it. Marty Biagi made it clear to us today that there's belief in that top down. If we're going to block it up and scheme it and spend all this time on it, Marcus Freeman was on board with having those 2 guys back there, and they like obviously the potential.
He said said Nolan James does a great job back there as well. So, I mean, it's probably a situation where you see Jeremiah Love, if they think they can get something on Miami and A&M, he's back there. If they think Miami and A&M are really solid in kickoff return, maybe it's Nolan James back there because you're not running Jeremiah Love into a brick wall at the 21-yard line either. So they're going to scheme it up each week. But good to hear Price is back there because, I mean,
he's good at it.
You remember the USC game? It was a pretty nice return against the Trojans. I asked about Noah Burnett, and then thankfully you followed up and asked about Schmidt because while it seems like Burnett's going to win the job, he has not yet. And it was not the all-time most glowing endorsement, which is why I only asked about Noah Burnett.
Correct. And let's I didn't tie in punt returners well enough on that last question. I failed you. I apologize. But I would note that
Jeremiah Love kind of took the lead there. So.
Yeah, exactly. Will Pauling and Jordan Faison were who we were first told about at punt return. Now, he mentioned Aeneas Williams. He mentioned a couple other guys.
Greathouse was mentioned.
Greathouse
Dallas
was mentioned.
Golden as well.
Dallas Golden. So those were the five. But he led with Will Pauling and he led with Jordan Faison and seemed to indicate they would start there and kind of go from there. And Matt Jeffrey, I think, was somewhere in the mix in one of those as well. In terms of the place kicking competition, you ask about Burnett. He feels like his competitiveness is something he really likes. He didn't flat out say he's not consistent enough, but he did point out Burnett made a 49-yard game-winning field goal as they closed practice today, and he goes, that was good to see. We need that. Now we need to know that every time. He said, when we're inside the 50, if it's a 50-yard field goal or less, we expect to put points on the board for the offense every time. They're not there yet. Schmidt could be a factor at kickoff. They like Schmidt's leg power. He can do all three. And Marty Biagi said it's a possibility that they will have three different people, that Rendell could punt, Burnett might be place kicker, and then Schmidt could be kicking off or some combination of those.
I talked about it in the practice report today because I don't think there's any doubt that, I mean, nobody has said this, but I don't think there's any doubt that Eric Schmidt's going to be the kickoff guy. And I also thought that it was really interesting that Biagi talked about Burnett when he was at North Carolina, the volume of kicking throughout the week.
Yeah, he kicked too much.
Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, he was kicking every day. And Biagi, in retrospect, now looks at that and says it was too much. So they've got a plan as to how much he kicks during the week. He's not a very big kid. You don't look, we've seen many Notre Dame kickers go through this period during a season where they get a little bit leg weary, and Biagi is very well, Mitch Jeter had a problem last year too, so they're going to be very careful with him there. But I feel strongly that Schmidt has a great chance to be the kickoff guy. And then, as you mentioned, John, short field goals, long field goals, I think there's a good chance that if you get into the 50-plus yard range, that would be Eric Schmidt.
Yeah, and Biagi should point out, he said that is a possibility. We could have a short field goal guy, a long field goal guy, a kickoff guy. Rendell clearly is the punter, but beyond that, Marty Biagi spelling some things pretty clearly for us today. One other thing to note I thought was pretty fascinating from Coach Biagi today, and that is I jokingly asked him about what's wrong with Marcus Freeman, that he can't punt those soccer balls, and he said it's part of the psychology of how they teach it, that if you're disciplined enough to not rough your head coach, you'll be disciplined enough to block a kick without roughing the punter on Saturday. I'm sure I'll write more about that either on II or FootballScoop, but I did love hearing the psychology behind that drill because we've seen it, and we saw Marcus Freeman get a bunch of kicks blocked the other day with his soccer ball or volleyball.
I asked Marty Biagi about Luke Talich and Jordan Faison were 1-2, other than Jeter, for Special Teams Player of the Year last year, so I'm assuming those two. I asked him about some other guys, and he said, I really think that this year we can platoon. We have enough depth that we can platoon our guys. So no one's on 4 teams. Some people could be on 3, but most will be on 2 teams. And of course, whenever you ask a coach to name some players, they're a little nervous about it because he has a lot more to name than, say, a running backs coach does. But he mentioned Micah Gilbert, Matt Jeffrey, of course. He then went on defense. Logan Thomas, not a surprise. He was actually on it last year. And he even got as deep as, I think this is part of the platoon, Devontae Smith and Jalen Stroman and some of the starters.
Yeah, he really liked the physicality that Stroman and Devontae Smith have brought to special teams. I think that's a great point by you, and good insight again by Coach Biagi to let us know, we always associate it with the core 4. Well, now it sounds like it might be more like the key 3. Yeah. And then I think it's important to note they are innovative in finding freshman avenues to the field, and freshmen are in a new era where they're all getting paid, so get them on the field.
Yeah, he did mention Zachary and Golden and Preston Zinter, who has had the quietest camp because he got moved to a position where he can't compete as a starting job, but he is going to be a key 3 player.
I want to talk about Golden and Zachary as it relates to quarterback. They've been running essentially number 2 all along, and you start to talk to him a little bit, and Zachary makes a comment about his ability to diagnose things pre-snap. I mean, how many times we've heard it many times already in this camp, that, pre-snap, the ability to know what's going to happen before the snap is absolutely huge.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously.
Shouldn't be a surprise the whole play.
No,
right?
right, exactly. And Zachary has it. And, Golden was pretty reserved in his comments. He wasn't going to say anything about himself per se but he was mainly going to compliment his teammates. But I think that's a very confident kid. I think in listening to Mike Mickens talk about those guys, right?
He tempered the enthusiasm properly, though. He said, look, we have depth because they're good, but Leonard Moore and Christian Gray, he did this. And then he said these guys are freshmen. So they're really good freshmen, but it's not Leonard Moore and Christian Gray. And, it's Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary.
Did anybody
he really likes the top starters.
Did anybody get a chance to ask about Cree Thomas? Because I'm a little bit surprised I don't see him taking any number 2 reps.
Yeah, he seems to be cemented with the third unit, but, I mean, he could be a guy that's also – the path to all three of those guys – other than injury, which nobody wants, because there is a drop-off right now, according to Mike Mickens, is special teams. Cree Thomas is probably trusted for special
Carson
teams.
Hobbs, I saw him at corner. I saw him aligned at nickel today. Again, all that stuff is brief. It's first team, second team, third team. They run out there, they run a play, and they change, and so it's a little bit difficult to do a body count 11 3 times in a row, but I saw him aligned at both spots.
He has been the number 2 nickel every time I've looked, and the best way to evaluate that is I don't need to look at the number 1 nickel. I know who it is, and I always see Ben Minnick with the 3 nickels. So that's one way of putting Carson Hobbs
again
as
today.
the 2.
Yeah.
One quick note from Christian Gray, and then I'll probably wrap it up for me today, would be he explained the switch to the number 6. He said, if you look back at all my recruiting visits to Notre Dame, I always wore the number 6. I used it as a way to honor my grandparents, particularly his grandmother, something that someone he said he keeps fresh in mind all the time, but that ultimately he noted, I'm playing for God. And then he also told me that he spent a lot of time training in Houston this summer, working on press coverage with a specialist down in Houston, and feels really good, and said he is cross-trained and is ready and able to play field or boundary as needed.
Yeah, and I asked Mike Mickens about the left-right field boundary situation. I knew the answer, but I want a coach to tell us, not just me, because you don't need to listen to me about strategy. They will not be playing left-right at corner. That is not how things work. They do have to play left-right when you're playing an up-tempo offense, of course. But
it's easy for Mike Mickens, not so much for 20-year-old guys.
He can handle that. Yes, Mike Mickens knows what he's doing on both sides. And, I mean, people can do it, and they have to do it when it's moving fast. But other than that, they prefer field and boundary at that position. This is the penultimate time we will stand on this campus during training camp. We'll be back here, not for the Jersey scrimmage, of course, but Marcus Freeman is going to address the media after the Jersey scrimmage. So will Mike Denbrock and Chris Ash. Until then, for John Brice over here, for Tim Priester, I'm Tim O'Malley. Thanks for listening to Irish Illustrated Instant Analysis, brought to you by the RV Manufactured Housing Hall of Fame and Northern Indiana Event Center in Elkhart, Indiana.